Hi, this is James Woodcock from Yamaha Personal Keyboard Owner, and welcome to YPKO Podcast number 8, available from www.ypko.co.uk. Now let's get straight into part 1 of our interview. Hello everyone, today I'm on the phone with James Sargeant, who is the product specialist from Yamaha UK. Welcome to the podcast, James.
Hello James, nice to speak to you again.
So, what exactly is your role within Yamaha UK? Maybe you could describe a typical day if there is such a thing.
Well, I don't think there is such a thing as a typical day. I think most people will know me as the face that you see in the stores and at the demonstrations, talking to end users about the product and showing them the features of the new instruments. But of course, my role is a little bit more complex than that, in that I get involved with a lot of dealer training. So when you speak to the guys in the shops, then I've passed on some of our technical knowledge and demonstration knowledge to them so that they can help the customers in a better way. But also, of course, I'm part of the development team for the instruments. So I work together with Yamaha Corporation Japan, helping program one such settings and styles and music finder settings as well.
Now you are here to tell us about the new Regi-Stick Plus, but before we get on to that, maybe you could tell us how you first got involved in working with Yamaha themselves.
Yes, of course. Many moons ago, I was the manager for a local retail music store, and after a few years there, I actually left the world of retail and went to work for the Hammond Organ Company, and I spent a number of years there as their national sales manager, and had a great time while I was there. And in fact, whilst I was working at Hammond, Andy Carville, who many people will know, approached me and said that there was a position at Yamaha as a demonstrator, at the time as an Electone demonstrator, and it was just the right kind of time for a change, really. So I handed in my notice at Hammond and went to Yamaha, and that's now 10 years ago. And going from being an Electone demonstrator, I then went to being the demonstrator for the full product line, including Clavinova and keyboards, of course. Then in the past 5 years, I've been employed by Yamaha as their full-time product manager, if you like.
So how did you get into playing in the first place?
It was just always somehow a passion. The house was always full of music. Everybody in the family was very musical. My father, in an earlier career, was actually a redcoat at Butlins and played in the Butlins band. And after he left there, he actually went on to play backing guitar with quite a few famous names, probably the most famous of all being David Bowie. He was very good friends with Mick Ronson, who many people will know as one of the guitarists with David Bowie in the band. And the house was always full of music. My grandparents were both musicians, both my parents are musicians, and it was just something that always seemed a natural thing to do.
So can you remember what your first instrument actually was?
Yeah, I can. It was a Bontempi.
Oh.
I'm sure that many people have learnt to play on something like that. Back in the days, really, before anybody made keyboard instruments as such, it was a little reed organ with chord buttons. And very soon after that was the time when the first portable keyboards were becoming available in the late 1970s and early 1980s. And my parents bought me one of those, and very, very quickly I realised that wasn't really the instrument that I wanted to play, because I'd seen so many people in concerts playing organ-style instruments, and that was what I wanted to do. So when I was about 9 years old, my parents bought me my first organ, which was a Hammond. And for many, many years I played different models of Hammond organs. And then as the instruments became much better technically and the orchestral sounds started to appear, then I had my first Yamaha organ, which was an FS70, which many people will remember, a 3-manual organ with all of the motorized sliders that moved on their own, and it was quite a magical thing. And I can remember being like a dog with two tails when that arrived, and never really wanted to go out of the house again. And then worked my way through various different models, and that kind of brought me up to where I am today, playing not just organ, of course, but keyboards and pianos as well.
Excellent. Now back onto Regi-Stick Plus, but before I continue, I should be careful not to confuse anyone and mention that this new product shouldn't be confused with the Regi-Stick that came out about a year ago now. So maybe you could tell us about the first Regi-Stick that came out for the Yamaha Tyros 2.
Yes, of course. The first Regi-Stick that we made was, I guess, in some ways, a bit of an experiment for us as well, because it was the first time ever that we'd produced software on a USB stick format rather than floppy disk. And of course, that format meant that the software itself would become slightly more expensive, and so therefore we wanted to give customers a lot of extra value in the product itself. And with this first Regi-Stick, all of the customer feedback that we'd had during the first year that we'd had Tyros 2 on sale, we tried to put all of that customer feedback into the software that we programmed. So we made hundreds of settings, basically with all of the most requested sounds available at the touch of one button. So very simple for people to access. If you want a Glenn Miller sound, you simply find the setting that's called Miller, and there it is. And we really wanted to make it plug and play simple, if you like. And on top of the most requested sounds, we included a few new ones of our own. And we also included some special program templates that would allow customers to use the Tyros 2, not just on its own, but if they wanted to add perhaps a bass pedal board to play pedals in an organ style, or even a second keyboard and a genuine Leslie speaker as well.
So following on from that success, and this is now known as the Regi-Stick Classic because of the new one, what can we expect from Regi-Stick Plus?
Well, with Regi-Stick Plus, we've taken quite a different angle to the programming, because of course when these instruments are set up, they are always programmed with a certain playing style in mind. And when I say that, I'm not thinking of a style of music, but of course you play a piano in a different way to the way that you play an organ, and you play an organ in a different way to the way that you play a portable keyboard. Because of course with an organ, generally speaking, you're playing the bass line yourself with the pedal board. With a keyboard, generally speaking, you're using the automatic accompaniments to play the bass and the chords. And with a piano, maybe your left hand is a little bit more mobile and a little bit more active. And with the Regi-Stick Classic, we designed everything around this automatic accompaniment way of playing, which I guess is how most people play the Tyros 2, and that was how Tyros 2 was developed in the first instance. But for Regi-Stick Plus, what we did actually was approach it from a different angle, in that we said, how would this instrument perform, how could it perform, if it hadn't been a portable keyboard, if in fact it had been designed from the outset as an organ-style instrument. And so we set the keyboard up in that way with a separate bass pedal board, and we made all of the new settings as if we were designing effectively a new instrument, as if we were designing a new organ, but using the sound technology that we have within the Tyros 2. And I think for many, many people, this is something that they've wanted to see from Yamaha for a long time, an organ-style instrument with truly up-to-date sound technology. And once we actually programmed all of those settings for use with the pedal board, we then went back to the beginning and remade every setting using the same kind of techniques, but set up specially for those customers that play with automatic accompaniment and automatic chords. So now every one of us, no matter what our playing style may be, can really get the best out of these new registrations that are on the Regi-Stick Plus.
So how many registrations are included in Regi-Stick Plus?
Well, as we speak, James, in total, that final number is still to be confirmed. But there are definitely in excess of 400. And in fact, we have two sections within the Regi-Stick Plus. We have a registration menu section, which will be really very, very useful for everyone, I think. And this feature we based on the registration menu that was found many years ago when we introduced the AR series Electone. Now, of course, when the AR series was introduced, the key feature of it was this registration menu. It meant that it was very easy for somebody to just sit down, press a couple of buttons and play straight away, a complete setup of the whole instrument. And in fact, that's exactly what we've done for Regi-Stick Plus. We've taken the concept from the AR100, but also we've even taken the same registration categories, many of the same registration names, so that anybody that used to play Electone will feel instantly at home with the new stick. But also we've added some new sounds in there, of course, because in the 11-year period since we introduced the AR series, many new things have come along, and I think everybody is going to have a load of fun using these new sounds.
So the 400 new registrations, are they completely new from the previous Regi-Stick Classic?
Yes, there's nothing carried over at all from Regi-Stick Classic, and the great news is that anybody that already owns the existing Regi-Stick can still use that together with their Regi-Stick Plus, so there's no duplication at all. And for anybody perhaps that hasn't got the first Regi-Stick, then, we hope that maybe they might decide to have both of the sticks and enjoy all of the sounds that we've made.
So can the Regi-Stick be copied onto the internal hard drive, for example, for those who want to keep the original Regi-Stick Plus saved away as a backup?
Yes, of course. There's no problem with that at all. There's no copy protection of any kind on it. So you can, of course, copy it into your hard drive or into the user page if you wish. Of course, the way that the stick is set up is that you have a series of sets of registrations, and for most people you will only use one of those sets depending on the instrument configuration that you have at home. So of course, if you only have the Tyros on its own, then you don't need all of the setups to work with pedal boards or lower manuals and so on, so you just copy the set that's relevant to you.
Now I see from the image you provided me earlier that the Regi-Stick comes with a wooden shelled USB stick.
Yes, indeed. We wanted to really make this quite a special thing, and I guess in some way to recreate some of those kind of organ memories, but we were able to find a new supplier for our Regi-Sticks this time, and they make a very, very attractive polished wooden stick. It's solid wood with the USB flash memory embedded into that, and the whole stick is in a polished rosewood kind of finish, and this is pre-threaded with a leather neck strap, so you can pop it around your neck and don't lose it. And for those people, I know quite a few people managed to lose the tops of their original Regi-Sticks because, of course, it's a separate item, but now it's a magnetic top on there and it's already threaded through the neck strap, so you can't lose the top. And it really looks very, very smart. It's fantastic.
So, how long did it take to create the latest incarnation of the Regi-Stick, and what was involved?
Well, we started actually the preliminary meetings about the project back in January, after the first sort of 3 or 4 months of the sales of the first Regi-Stick. And at that point, we realized that this was going to be a phenomenally successful piece of software. And we wanted to do something new again for our Tyros 2 owners for the second year. And so we had some initial discussions about it, and we looked at some of the technical difficulties perhaps that we would have to overcome. And then over the following months, myself and Richard Ashby, who's the national sales manager for Yamaha, many people will remember Richard from his days years ago on the organ festival circuit and through his work playing other brands of instruments. And Richard and I sat down and discussed what would be the best way to go forward with this. We decided this time, because we were really designing a very new thing, and in fact, as we said, approaching this as a brand new instrument, what we wanted to do, rather than employ lots of players as we did with Regi-Stick 1, this time we simply used myself and Richard Bauer. Between the two of us, we were the two people that really, I suppose, made many of the signature sounds for Tyros 2 that many people will be familiar with from the One Touch settings. And we set to work with a clean sheet of paper, basically. Probably in total, I would guess, if we're going to put it down into man-hours, perhaps 350, 400 man-hours.
That's a lot.
It's a serious amount of programming time because, of course, many of the settings do include special sort of behind-the-scenes settings which aren't very obvious when you look at the main screen of the instrument. So, in fact, many of the voices that you see on the screen haven't been used directly from the panel. We've actually edited all of the voice parameters. We've revoiced and remixed and reworked all of the styles that we've used. And, of course, because we included these new pedal voices, then, of course, all of those pedal sounds aren't normally in the factory set Tyros 2 as it comes from the box. So we had to actually make all of those voices from scratch using a PC voice creation tool. And there's quite a lot of work involved in creating these registrations. It's not, very definitely not just a case of throwing a few sounds together and hope for the best.
Now, before we head back to our interview with James Sargeant, let's take a little break and listen to a couple of new styles that appeared on Internet Direct Connection on the Yamaha Tyros 2. You will hear a couple of introductions, a couple of variations, and an ending on each of the new styles, beginning with Power Disco and then Rock Keys. Now let's head straight back to part 2 of our interview with James Sargeant. Do you require bass pedals to fully enjoy this product?
Not at all, no. As I say, every setting we originally made with the bass pedal settings, and then we've taken all of those sounds and reworked them again for those people that want to use automatic bass. And in fact, again, that in itself is no small task to undertake, because every style, when you play with automatic accompaniment, is then revoiced again and remixed, and the bass voices are changed, and in many cases we also altered individual drum sounds and so on, because when you play in an organ style with pedals, then quite often you want the left-hand sound to be fairly loud, because you want something happening in the left hand that you're playing yourself, some kind of rhythmic chord. Perhaps you want the rhythm section to be a little bit more pronounced than it would be playing automatic chords, because it needs to cut through the very deep bass pedal sound. So the whole thing was quite an undertaking. In fact, it took just as long to make the automatic pedal, if you like, the automatic accompaniment settings, as it did to make the manual bass settings.
So if you wanted to use bass pedals, how would you go about it?
Well, it always was a very difficult thing to achieve, to get a MIDI pedal board to work properly with a keyboard instrument. And that was mainly because it took a lot of setting up in terms of getting all of the MIDI settings right, but also because the keyboard itself didn't include any bass pedal voices. You know, bass pedal sounds on an organ instrument are very different from the superb mega voice bass guitars and acoustic basses that we're used to hearing in accompaniment styles when we play with automatic accompaniment. And so for Tyros 2 and the Regi-Stick Plus, we created a whole new set of specific organ bass pedal sounds, and we've also included all of the MIDI template settings that you need to make it work Well, pretty much immediately. You simply go through the very simple setup process that's included on the Regi-Stick Plus instruction leaflet, and it really is just a couple of buttons, and once you've done it, you never need to do it again, and everything works. You plug the MIDI lead from the pedal board MIDI output into the MIDI input of the Tyros 2, and everything works just fine. There are a number of pedal boards available. Of course, any MIDI pedal board will work. We've tried it with pretty much everyone that's available on the market, and I have to say, from a number of points, both technical and aesthetic, and also from a playing point of view, by far the most superior is the Hammond pedal board. It's the YPKO 100, which is a 13-note pedal board, and it really is the only set of MIDI pedals that actually feels like an organ. Many of the cheaper ones somehow feel a little bit flimsy, and it's a little bit out of keeping with the high quality of the Tyros 2 as well, I think. If you want to add an additional lower manual, then that's very easy to do. It's just simply choose a different set of registrations from the stick, and again, all of the MIDI templates are there. It's all set up for you, so you just simply choose a different configuration, and away you go and play. And if you are thinking about adding a lower manual, Yamaha now have a great solution in the form of a little thing which is called an NP30S, and this is a 76-note lower manual. It's a very lightweight instrument, very small and compact. It's in silver to match the Tyros 2, and it's incredibly good value. It's £199 retail, and you can even use it as a standalone instrument, just as a little portable piano. It has its own speakers and a very good quality of sound. So a really useful little thing to have about. Many people have also decided to add a genuine rotary speaker. You can add a Leslie 21 series rotary speaker, which again matches the Tyros 2. It's in a very smart silver finish, which matches exactly. And it really does make a huge difference to the quality of the organ sounds. The organ sounds themselves, of course, in the Tyros 2 are brilliant, but when you hear the sound coming not from a static speaker but from a revolving speaker, then the whole thing really comes to life. You get a fantastic three-dimensional sound, because of course the speaker is rotating and literally throwing the sound around the room, so you're hearing it bouncing around from all angles, and it sounds so good that I'm sure even the neighbours will love it.
Yes, maybe a good idea to get a detached house if you're thinking of one of those.
Yeah, possibly. But of course, even when you play with headphones, then the very high quality rotary speaker simulation in the Tyros 2 sounds fantastic, and it sounds great through the Tyros 2 home speaker pack. We've carried over the special compressor and EQ settings that we had on the Regi-Stick Classic for this new Regi-Stick Plus, and it really does improve the quality of the sound that you get from the Tyros' own speaker set as well. So I think it's a world of difference compared to the sort of factory set Tyros as it comes out of the box.
So a question that appears on my discussion forum quite a lot is, will there be any other versions of Regi-Stick Classic, or indeed the new variant, for other keyboard models or even the CVP Clavinovas in the future?
Well, that's a very good question, and of course, one of the things about the Tyros 2 that makes it unique is that it does give us quite a lot more scope in terms of creating new custom voices, for example, which we're not able to do for instruments like CVP or indeed the new PSR S series, S700 and 900. However, we recognise that there is a demand for additional software for those instruments, and of course those instruments at the moment are very new and very fresh to the market. I think for the customers that already own those instruments or are thinking about purchasing one of those instruments, I think what I would say is enjoy the sounds that are there for now. You'll have loads of fun exploring it. Well, all I can say is let's just wait and see what happens, but I think you'll be surprised.
Another feature that is included is something called Melody Maker, but what is this?
Okay, well, Melody Maker is a great new feature, and I think that virtually everybody that plays Tyros 2 is going to enjoy using the Melody Maker and find it really useful. We know that many of our customers enjoy using wanted settings, but they tell us that perhaps they wanted a little bit more variety rather than just the 4 wanted settings for each style. Many people buy additional styles from third-party software suppliers, or maybe even they have styles that have been converted from other keyboard products that don't come with one such settings. And in those instances, it's very difficult for an end user to create a registration quickly and simply. And in fact, we know that trying to combine sounds, particularly for the right hand, if you just select the sounds from the panel, isn't necessarily an easy job, because the sounds from the panel really need a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of molding and shaping to make them work together. They're fine if you use them on their own, but if you start to mix sounds together, you maybe need a little bit of extra expertise to help you out with that. And this Melody Maker will actually allow you to do that very quickly and easily, because what this is a whole series of, I guess we would call them registrations, but it's not a registration in the conventional sense, because it doesn't include any rhythm settings or accompaniment settings. You simply choose whichever style you want to use, be it a factory preset style, be it a third-party style, be it a converted style from another keyboard product, or even a style that's come from our own Internet Direct Connection service. And then choose a bank of Melody Maker sounds, and you've got 8 registrations for the right hand instantly set up that don't alter anything to do with the style section. They don't alter any accompaniment settings. It doesn't mess anything up that you've already set. It just basically provides you with some great new sounds for the right hand melody. And these are all programmed to the same standard as the factory one such settings. So if you're using a style that already has 4 one such settings, well, now with Melody Maker, you've got an additional 8 on the panel available to you. Means you've now got 12 one such settings for every style.
So, the big question, where can we see demonstrations of the Regi-Stick Plus?
Well, the first showing of this is going to be our public preview, which is at the Pakefield Keyboard Cavalcade Festival, and that's happening on Thursday the 13th of September. And from then on, of course, you'll see Regi-Stick Plus being demonstrated not only at all of the festivals that we're attending, but also any demonstrations that you see Yamaha staff around at. But also from the 1st of October, you'll be able to go to your local Yamaha portable keyboard dealer, and they will all have a copy of the Regi-Stick Plus available for demonstration as well. So you'll be able to see it and hear it in action and play it for yourselves in your local music store. And
of course, Elveston, I gather.
And of course, Elveston. And in fact, in the programme of Elveston, we will have a special Regi-Stick afternoon seminar. So we'll have a lot of things to say about that, and we'll be talking a lot about it. It's very exciting.
And finally, the price.
Well, the price is really good news, actually, because now with all of this extra programming work, in fact, the programming time for the Regi-Stick Plus, even though it's only 2 programmers, the Regi-Stick Plus programming time was actually almost twice the length of time, and of course that incurs twice the cost. I deliberately wanted to go for a much nicer looking stick itself and some nicer quality packaging, because we've been able to buy these in some quantity and we've been able to find a new supplier that's done us a very good deal. Then I think everybody will be delighted to know that for Yamaha Club members the price will be $24.99, and for non-members $29.99. So it really is excellent value when you consider the amount of new sounds that you have available, the 2 new features with the registration menu and the Melody Maker, and it really does make Tyros 2 into a brand new instrument.
No, that's very good. I thought you were preparing us for the worst with the build-up then.
No, I think this is excellent value, and well, as I used to say, every home should have one.
Is there anything you would like to say to the listeners of the YPKO podcast before we go?
Well, of course, I'd like to say it's been an absolute pleasure to be here talking to you today. I'd like to thank everybody that's an active member of YPKO. It's a fantastic resource for all of our Yamaha owners. I certainly enjoy reading all of the lively posts and discussion threads on the forum. And please, the whole point of this is that we can all share ideas and hints and tips and pool resources. And as a result of that, we can all better enjoy our music, which is what all of this is about. It's all about just enjoying the music and enjoying these fantastic instruments that we have at our disposal.
Well, all that is left to say is thank you very much for spending time with us today, James, and I hope you will be on again in the near future.
Thank you very much, James. Nice to speak to you. Always a pleasure. Look forward to seeing all of the listeners at one of our demonstrations or festivals very soon.